Well, welcome. I'm very happy to be joined today by Mitra Somerville, and a little bit about Mitra. Mitra has lived and trained in integral yoga communities in Australia, New York, and Yogaville, Virginia. He's a trainer for the Integral Yoga Basic Teacher Training and a meditation, Raja Yoga, stress management, and Hatha Yoga teacher as well. While in Hawaii, he opened a yoga studio, and he also self-published a book titled Treasure Within You. So thanks, Mitra.
It's great to be here, Avi. Thank you.
I'll start out with that book title because I just find it interesting. Treasure Within You. Why did you choose that title?
It sort of just came to me, but a big part of the yoga teachings is connecting with that deeper part of us, with our peace and joy. And I feel like that's part of the treasure that we all have within us. But we're not necessarily experiencing that treasure. It's a little bit the idea of buried treasure, and that we need to uncover it somehow. And so, in the book I was giving different ways of getting in touch with our treasure, which we all have. It's not something exclusive to one or two people.
So you think we all have a treasure within us, and is the task of life kind of, uncovering that treasure, or is it more apparent when we're children and then maybe some other stuff gets piled on top of the treasure, and then we're trying to uncover it and go back to maybe more of a childlike existence? What do you think? Good ideas in there. I think honestly it depends on the person. Some people may view their treasure as something more normal, like having a nice house and a good job and a family, which is fun. That might be a treasure for some folks. And for me, I feel like my treasure is more my peace and feeling content and at ease, relaxed. So I think it depends on the person and what their goals are. So it's not for me to say one person's goals are better than somebody else. But certainly you mentioned childhood. I think there is more of a feeling of joy, especially joy and just being present and not worrying about things as a child. But as a child, we didn't necessarily know how that happened or how to get there. So as an adult, there is a lot of things that have been piled on top of that treasure that maybe need to be cleared away so we can experience it more. And all of the yoga teachings, really help us uncover our treasure or our peace. Okay, so for you, you mentioned your treasure is your peace, kind of this relaxed existence. What was the process for you discovering that? Like, how did you discover that is the treasure that you're interested in uncovering maybe again and again?
That's, I think for me, I was, when I was in kind of college around that age, I was, doing my work and things, but I did feel like, what's life? What's the meaning of life? And I did feel a bit confused about, what's it all about? And when I first got my first job, I was extremely stressed out with being kind of in a real job in the real world. And to relieve that stress, I started doing meditation. And I think that was the first time I started to feel, a sense of peace and at least a lot of stress relief in the beginning, but just I started to connect a little bit more with that peace. But and not a lot in the beginning, but it was something. Yeah.
So meditation was kind of the vehicle for experiencing that peace.
Yes, it was. And I did it for a different purpose, to relieve the stress. I felt like I was under extreme stress because one of my bosses was picking on me, and I didn't know how to deal with that. I'd never worked in a place like that. It was a bank. So
it was very helpful. Yeah, a friend of mine had been meditating, so he said, well, you try, it might help you. And it really did. It really helped a lot. Yeah.
The title of your upcoming workshop, I know, is called Letting Go is Easier If You Know How. Is that right?
Yeah, when you know how.
When you know how.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So is that what we're talking about really here, is like knowing how to let go? When I let go, is my peace there waiting for me?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it is, depending on how much there is to let go. So if I have a lot of stuff and I let go of half of it, it's half still there. So it'll still be blocking to some extent. But I think every time we're able to let go on one level or another, physically, emotionally, mentally, we're going to feel better, more relaxed and happier. It helps us to connect more deeply to our peace. So there's in the Yoga Sutras, which is part of Raja Yoga, there's two ways to get to our peace. Well, two ways to still the mind. When the mind becomes still, we feel our peace naturally. And the two main ways is practice and letting go. So in my workshop, I'm going to focus on the letting go or non-attachment, and which in a sense is a type of practice too. And I remember Sri Swami Satchidananda saying, of the two, non-attachment and practice, non-attachment's more important. Because if we can let go or have non-attachment, we don't need practice. Because as you kind of said, if we let go of everything that's an obstacle to our peace, then it just shows up. It's not like we're getting our peace from somewhere else. It's already there, but we're just uncovering it. It's like on a sunny day. If the sun is our peace, if there's no clouds, the sun comes completely through and we see it and we feel it fully. So we feel our peace fully. But if there's light clouds, it blocks it a little bit. If there's dark clouds and hail and snow and everything, there's very little experience of our peace. So, there is different degrees there.
For me, it brings up the question too, is like, what does it mean to let go? What are we talking about when we say letting go?
Yeah, good question. Well, it depends what level of our being that we're talking about, and of course everything's related. So if I have a certain belief that everything I do fails, that's my belief, everything that I try fails, that's going to block. It's a certain creation. All beliefs are creations. They have a form, just like this chair has a certain form. All creations have a form, and that has a form. Everything that I touch fails. So that's going to tend to manifest failure. So if I want to let go of that pattern, I have to let go of that belief pattern. If I'm holding that belief pattern very strongly and consistently, I'm going to create that reality. So letting go would be letting go of that belief. So there's different ways of letting go of the belief. One way is just stop feeding it, not stop energizing it, because all beliefs, for them to continue to manifest, need to have energy. They need to have attention and energy. So they need the same type of thoughts. I need to think the same kind of thing again. Everything I touch fails regularly to keep that going. So if I stop feeding into that belief, then it starts to dissolve, and then the effects of it start to dissolve. And I can also bring in the opposite thought. Things work out well for me, which is another approach. Also, when we become aware of that belief, many times beliefs are operating, but then we don't know what they are. They're transparent. So once I become aware that everything I touch fails, it's almost like a breath of fresh air. Oh, wow, I see that. That's why things are not working out for me. Like that awareness, brings the light onto that, and thinking, well, that is just not that. I don't have to believe that. I don't have to buy into that. It's just an idea. So then I can say, well, I'm going to believe the opposite. Why can't I? This is my life. I can choose whatever belief I want. So the belief I start to choose, things work out for me. And then there's also, in the workshop we did this fun exercise where we it's a fire ceremony. So we take that belief, write it on a piece of paper, with our imagination. Everything fails, everything I touch fails for me, and throw it into the fire. So it's like a release. It's like a way of letting go of that. So there are different ways of working with the beliefs that don't help us. So some of them are working directly and releasing it. Others are just bringing in the positive. When the mind's full of a mantra or a positive belief, there's no room for those other ones also. So fortunately in yoga, there's a lot of different techniques. And the more techniques that we know about and the more that we practice, then we can choose the right technique at the right moment.
The right technique at the right moment. And right now, the two examples of techniques, one is replacing a negative belief with a positive belief, and the other one is just simply letting go, maybe, and just not having any beliefs, just existing in that realm of emptiness or peace, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of an ultimate. It's kind of quite a high or subtle realm to have.
So you think that one is kind of even, it's maybe easier to replace the negative belief with a positive belief first.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've hit on a very important point that, like a lot of things, schooling, you go grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Normally we don't go grade 1, grade 6. And that's the same in yoga. We often start with more simple, straightforward things like, do some stretches and postures rather than going to the most subtle Raja Yoga, practice or teaching. And so what you're saying there is that, the step, when I have a belief, when I discover a belief, maybe through reflection, that, this, for example, this arguing with my boss, I had an argument with my boss, right, during the day, and then after work I reflect, and then I realize arguing with my boss is not working for me. And there's a belief there that, maybe I know better than them or something. And so I discover that, and I'm able to say, well, I don't really want to repeat that the next day. Let me bring in a different belief that, I work well with my boss. I listen to him, all his feedback, with openness or something, kind of start to turn that around so I don't have those, stressful arguments, at least reduce it, And so I'm bringing in a positive kind of new behavior, new thoughts. But what you are suggesting is ultimately, no thoughts, moving from negative to positive and then from positive to no thoughts is also part of yoga. Because if we have no thoughts, that's what the Yoga Sutras are saying, when we still the mind, so we first calm the mind's more calm when it's positive, and stilling the mind's a whole different ballgame, that there's nothing happening. And then we really start to feel the peace at a much deeper level. Yeah, so that's a hard jump from negative to nothing. It's just not possible, not for most people, I don't think.
Right, but okay. My question still is, what's between me or any person and letting go of all beliefs, experiencing that nothing? Why is that so challenging? Why is the nothing such a high level? Level 6, it seems like it would be a very simple thing. Just don't think about anything or don't believe. Just exist in that realm of nothing. It seems amateur, but you're saying it's a very high level, and I agree with you. So why is it such a high level? What is between me and experiencing that?
Yeah, well, what's in between is that we receive a tremendous amount of conditioning from our parents and our religion and our culture and our teachers and our family members. A lot of it's just basic conditioning, like this is a chair, this is a table, but it's also beliefs about all sorts of things. So we end up, as a baby, we just relaxed and peaceful, most of the time, but then we get fed all of this conditioning, and that's what's in the way.
because some of that's positive and some of it's actually not helpful to us. It could be all the things we watch on TV, all the, things that we absorb. We absorb a whole lot more than what we know. It's just continual absorbing of beliefs and attitudes, and most of that it's not through the words of our parents, it's through the actions. As children, we absorb all that. And so that, and then, in yoga point of view, we're also bringing in past life mental stuff. It's such a perfect description of the thing, as you said, that what's in the way, mental stuff. And I think we can all relate to that. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, "Oh, I've got a lot. I'm one of those people that has a lot going on in my mind." And I'm thinking, sometimes I say to them, "Well, you plus everybody else, like you're not the only one," right? And that's what you're speaking to. That there's a lot of mental stuff, but it is possible, through letting go and also through practice, which like meditation and other practice, to start to start to release what's in the way. And it's for most people, it's not a weekend workshop that you can have a lot of breakthroughs in a weekend workshop, but it is a years and decades for most people where they slowly let go and they do their practice and their mind becomes more steady and they start to feel more of that peace and their bodies are more relaxed, and it's a win-win situation.
Is it getting comfortable with this life experience that we're having? Like, is it this like kind of settling in, like, okay, I'm accepting this situation, I'm okay with it, there's maybe not as much I need to figure out, not as much that I need to do, it's not as much pressure or fear. I can just let go and just be. I don't need to think about anything. It's not necessary.
When my experience is, whenever I start to feel centered in my peace, there is a sense that everything's okay. And one of the nice things, at least for me, is that once I start to feel that peace, then I also feel the guidance. So sometimes in my jobs that my mind can be very active, but I'm also still peaceful because the activity is not personal. I don't have any agenda necessarily of getting my way or not getting my way. It's just like the next thing, the next job, the next thing, it sort of keeps coming through my mind. What's the next thing to do or say? That's one of the things I've noticed, that when I stay in my center, like keep that feeling that I have after I finish meditation, bring that into my day, then there's a flow. Even when I'm very busy, I can still feel content. Yeah, so that's a nice thing that I've experienced.
So you mentioned your center. Can you explain a little bit more about like returning to your center? Like, how does that happen? Do you you notice that, okay, I've gone far out away from my center, I've journeyed, and okay, I'm going to bring myself back in. Like, what is happening there? What is your center? How do you come back to your center?
Yeah, well, I think the center is just another word for peace or contentment. There's different ways to come back to my center. Usually if I notice that I've got distracted or I'm starting to feel agitated, like that example of arguing with my boss, often what I do is I just stop feeding into it. I stop arguing. I step back and I start to become aware of what I'm doing, and I can see where I can see where it's going. It's going to get worse. Like, I'm going to feel more upset. Mm-hmm. They're probably going to get more upset, and it's a lose-lose situation. This is one example. So I sort of become more of a witness and see what's going on, and there's a little bit of quick reflection there, and say, well, what's the next step here to help to sort of like scale this down? Drop back. I may not come back into my center, but I'll start to feel more, more myself. Like there's less agitation. And then what I do sometimes, if I'm still feeling quite a bit of agitation because I've let it go too far, then I feel the agitation, or I feel the ups or the frustration or the upsetness. Like I just let myself. I just close. I mean, if the phone's not ringing, I just go around the corner and that's just like be very present and not think about what happened at all, but just move into feeling. So I just feel my feelings, and if I do it really well, if I'm 100% just in feeling, it can move a lot of that frustration or agitation within a few seconds, and then I start to feel. It is using the breath as well, but I start to feel I do start to feel more centered again. There's still a little bit of, like in the body, especially a little bit of, maybe tension or agitation. It's a little bit left. It doesn't like completely disappear, but it's night and day from being in the middle of that argument. Like 5 minutes later, I'm back and I can start, doing my job again. And so I've moved back a long way towards my center. Of course, if it's just a little bit of, like I'm talking to somebody on the phone and I just start to feel irritated and I just notice at the beginning of it, it's so much easier to come back to my center because I haven't let it go very far. So I stop. So that's a big, I won't have to feel my feelings. All I got to do then is just, maybe take a couple of deep breaths and notice and not just be, just come back and make sure that I'm, treating that, saying, the words, patiently and calmly. So it depends a lot on how far the agitation or the stress has gone. The further I'm away from my center, the longer it is coming back. And that's okay because we all do it. It's not, and one of the most important things of not being in the center is not to judge ourselves harshly, because we all do it. Because if I judge myself harshly, then there's just something else I've got to undo. Like I'm just piling more on top of what's already there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So much there that I want to talk about. But the final thing, especially I think is a really important point that you mentioned is that it's okay. Right. And what is my relationship to those kind of negative feedback loops, those beliefs that maybe aren't serving me so well? How am I allowing it to be okay? What is my relationship to those things? And I think that's tricky because it seems hard to not make them the enemy. That, oh, this is happening again. Like, why am I doing that? It's so common to berate the self there, but it seems that when I do that, that's not it either. Like I've lost something. Like that's not really helping things when I feel bad about who I am. That's increasing the separation. That's not getting me closer to my peace, right?
Yeah, I mean those thoughts are not wrong or bad. God's created those thoughts. The divine is still underneath it all. It's just that they're not. Just a smart person doesn't cultivate those kind of thoughts because they're lose-lose thoughts. Nobody wins from, like having the belief that everything turns out crap for me. Like who's going to win in that? I don't win, and nobody else wins either. If things keep falling apart or something, So it's just. It's just part of wisdom that we want to cultivate those type of thoughts, those loving thoughts, being useful kind of thoughts and beliefs that that are useful. I mean, useful to us, but it's a win-win. It's nobody's losing from positive thoughts.
Yeah. On a societal level, do you think it would be wise of us to shift kind of the common practice of being down on ourselves? Because from my perspective, it's very socially acceptable to judge myself harshly. Right? I notice that going on a lot. People talking badly about themselves. Somehow that has become a very socially accepted practice to do. What do you think about trying to kind of shift that culture to a place where maybe we call each other out more when we do that? It's like, no, Mitra, I don't believe that that's true. I think you hold value. I think you're being too hard on yourself right now, or whatever needs to be said.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's obviously self-criticism. I mean, there's obviously a place for reflection and saying, hey, yeah, I think I screwed up in that situation. Like, but not beating ourselves up, but just being honest. Yeah, but just getting into a pattern of self-judgment and criticism. Yeah, obviously it's not good. And I think, we can help each other with that. If they're good enough, close enough friends, we can, not only that kind of belief, but anything. If we feel like our friend's getting off track, that's part of being a friend. In terms of society, I mean, we can only be really a good example, and maybe if we have a little bit of training and we're teachers or teaching a yoga class or a Raja Yoga, series or something, and those who are interested and ready, they can come along but certainly the way that we've been taught is that we're not out there, pushing anything, like everybody comes to, wanting to grow at their own pace. So those who are not ready to grow probably won't. The world provides a lot of opportunities to grow, and it's not my job to try to change everybody or change the world. I mean, I think when I do get in my peace, though, the divine works through me to bring positive outcomes. But that, in a way, that's not even my choice. I don't feel like that's my choice. I'm not consciously choosing, I'm going to do this and change the world. I'm going to do this and change the world. That's not the most peaceful. That's not the way that I like to do it. I like to get peace on, listen to my inner guidance and just follow that, and let that deeper spirit work through me, and let the divine plan work through me rather than my own plan. It's a little bit. Not that the other way of doing it is wrong, but this is more, to me, this is more peaceful, because then I don't have to decide everything.
Right. Well, it takes me back to letting go and what happens when I do that. From my experience, when I let go, automatically I seem to be connecting to the divine force walking through me, working through me.
Yeah.
And it's so comforting. It's like in that moment, I realize, as you said, how far out maybe I was, right? How far away from operating on that level I had been. And it's so comforting. Like, it's so, like, the word light comes to me, like a feeling of lightness, as opposed to, pressurized. I need to figure out what's next. I have to figure out what to do. What I hear you saying is, like, real peace comes when I kind of allow what's already happening to happen.
Yeah. I think sometimes I find myself, I think, I don't know what to do next. And I think sometimes it's just good to take a little break. Like, I'm not talking about a day off or something, but just say, well, I'm just waiting here. I'm just waiting here for a little bit of guidance, because I'm not sure, maybe have a cup of tea or something. But, Swami Satchidananda often did that. Like, he was, he'd have his cards with all the questions on, and he'd read the question out, and then nothing, like blank. He wouldn't say anything for quite a while. And then something would come through, and he said, well, people would ask the question, why didn't you answer that question straight away? And he said, I'm waiting for the answer. I'm waiting for he said it like a download, just because it's funny. And, that sometimes it's like that, it's like, sometimes, that guidance, the guidance is always there, but sometimes it takes a while for it to, to be, maybe it's just my mind's too busy for me to hear it, so I just need to relax and take a little break too. That might be it. But maybe sometimes God's saying, I don't have anything for you right now. Just take a little break. And I'll have, the next thing will be waiting in 5 minutes. And often when I sit down, then something comes, and I get the idea, oh yeah, somebody asked me that.
I remember that email now that somebody sent me. You know what I mean? And then I'm sort of back in the flow of one thing after the other. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a whole. I love this topic of inner guidance and how to listen for the answers, and it's a great topic. I mean, it's a big, and I think for me, it's a lot of it is about having a quiet mind, and the easiest time for me to hear my inner guidance is at the end of meditation, and sometimes I ask a question. What do I need to do here? Or what, like I ask a question, and sometimes that question is a good way for me to help connect with, what the answer's coming, So it's an interesting topic.
Yeah. To maybe take it to an even deeper place, like, where is that question coming from, too? Like, when you say, I ask a question, well, where is that question coming from? What's the origin of it?
Right. I think most times for me, the question's coming from my mind. But I think perhaps sometimes, well, I think if it's coming from the divine, there isn't a need for a question. Like it's just an answer. It's just like guidance. It's not really even an answer. It's just guidance. So I think for me, when I ask a question, usually it's, like it might be an issue I'm having in a relationship, or just I'm just confused about something. And so I think it is more coming from my mind at that point. But
do you enjoy kind of having these deeper conversations, and has that always been the case for you, or did you kind of develop a taste for really probing more deeply?
Yeah, I think I've always, not always, but once I got to that, like college time, and I started to question more, and because I wasn't really sure what life was about, well, at all, really. And I did a few different personal development, breathing things, and then I started the meditation. And then in my early 20s, I moved into an integral yoga, like a Yogaville in Australia. And there was a Swami there, and this is when it really started. I had a lot of questions. What does that mean? What's that practice? And this, and so I did have an interest in the just finding learning about the teachings and understanding it, and then practicing it. And that's one of the things I like about our spiritual groups that we have, is that somebody will bring up a topic, and then it gives me a chance to play with that topic during the week, and I enjoy that to go deeper, or just try things from different angles. Yeah, I mean it is interesting for me.
You mentioned learning from the teachings. What's your relationship or balance between taking lessons from a spiritual teacher or text and your own self-discovery?
Yeah, most of it's probably just my own practice now. I enjoy listening to the teachings, but I don't really read them a lot. We have the teachings on audio at lunchtime, so I enjoy listening to them, but I don't really read the scriptures very much. I kind of enjoy more the human contact with the teaching, how people experience the teachings in their life. And then, I'm probably more into doing the practice, the hatha meditation, kirtan, and, doing mantra japa. Like I feel like that's probably more important than reading about it. The practice,
But even the practices, right? Like you learned those, right? You didn't develop those on your own. So you took something from an external source, maybe it sounded wise to you, and you incorporated it into your own life.
Yeah. Well, part of learning those teachings from a teacher or from a book or something is that I learned also that we needed to be regular in that. The benefits really flowed much more when somebody's regular in their meditation and their yoga practice. So that's what I've tried to be regular. And fortunately for me, I've lived in spiritual communities a lot, where
the practices were going on, group practice, and so that helped me get steady in those different meditations.
Do you find that what the culture is of the people around you really kind of affects your state of being a lot? Like you're very influenced by the people around you and what they're doing?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I feel like think it's huge, honestly. Because a little more than a year ago, I was living in a really large city, and I didn't really have any spiritual community to speak of. And, it was a lot harder than it is now, because there's a lot of, I just feel a lot of support here, and a lot of that comes from just crossing somebody on the street and just saying hi, or, some of our groups, and, just on the phone connecting with people. I think as I got older, I see even more clearly the power of the Sangha and being together and supporting each other. Yeah, and plus I have that contrast, because if I've always lived in spiritual community, I wouldn't have the contrast of being out there by myself and having to, just like it's, continually practice, which was working for me, but I never had the support that's just here. And of course, in the ashram here, there's a support not just from the people, but the peaceful vibration of Swami Satchidananda. This was his main home. We live in the country too, which has a special vibration, and all the practice that's been done here over the years. So it's a combination. It's a great combination that it does make it easier. I mean, things still come up, challenges come up. But I really see that clear how important Sangha is, and so not everybody can live in an ashram or community, but finding that support wherever folks are living, whether that's now through Zoom or by emails and WhatsApp or Skype or different ways of communicating, or groups and things like that. It's so important to have that support. Yeah, spiritual support.
Yeah, I think so too. That's what also led me here, was an awareness of how important community is. I just kept getting that message again and again.
Yeah.
And also, one thing that became important to me was looking at my life from the perspective of what would be best for Avi, right? Which I had not ever really done before. Like seeing myself from the point of view that I'm speaking right now, that I'm in a way my own safekeeper, right? So how can I set him up for success? Do you have that at all, where you're looking at it from the point of view of like what would be best for Mitra right now?
That can be part of it. Yeah, definitely that meant just reflecting and saying, well, like even comparing, I could live here, I could live here, I could live there. What's the pros and cons? Yeah. I think ultimately for me, there was part of that, like in moving back, but there was also part of Gurudev's really guiding me here. Like on a deeper level, there's also a guidance. This is the best. This will be the best place for you. And fortunately, what's best for me is also, I feel like it's also best for everybody else. It's a win-win situation when we come back to, when we come and live in a spiritual community. Because as I get more centered and more happy, then I'm more useful as well than if I'm, in some big city or somewhere and I'm stressed out, I'm, just getting by day to day. I'm not really contributing much to the peace of the community. I'm just another person that's,
Right.
half stressed out, you know what I mean? Maybe a little more peaceful because of my meditation, but still I'm not really, it's better for me to be here, have the support, and then, contribute from here,
I think that's such a really important point. And Gurudev talks about this too. It's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, why am I trying to become a healthier version of myself? And I think it's because of what you just mentioned. Like, I can't help anyone else if I'm the one that needs help, right? Like,
Yeah.
first you have to, get yourself to a healthy place, a strong place. And I think even automatically, without even, just by doing that, it will be doing good for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, if I'm not feeling relaxed and peaceful, I can't be really friendly and, like patient with somebody on the phone, it's calling in with a question or something,
And does that like add that added purpose? Does that give us fuel on our path too? Like, all right, like if I do this, if I make strides, like that's going to help the people around me too. Is that a nice perspective to kind of connect with, that can help us along the way?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, one of the things about spiritual community, it's easy to look around and be inspired by this person or this person. Maybe somebody's been here for 2 months and they're really doing their best, to get to, their service, and you can see that they're really trying. And then you see somebody who's been around 40 years and they're, like they're steady with their practice, and you can see that they're peaceful. So each person can be inspired by all these different people. And the energy is just, I mean, it's not like it's perfect here. We all have our, our mental stuff still, or a degree of it. But it's just, every time I go to town, I feel like, mostly what I feel is a business vibe. It's like it's a transaction. It's all about, to-do list is about going to some business, getting something, and leaving. And I try to be friendly. I mean, I'm friendly, but here the baseline is more like just, oh, hey, how you doing? Like the purpose is to connect, not to transact. There's nothing wrong with transaction. We'll have to go and buy clothes or get things, or it's nothing wrong with that. But the vibe is different. The vibe is more like, hey, it's nice to see you. There's no agenda. Usually, I mean, sometimes there's agenda. Well, like there might be a question for somebody, and that's fine too. There's nothing wrong in that. But yeah.
Well, I think the mind wants to transact like that because it's easy. The mind can understand it, right? Like, okay, I pay a certain amount of money, I get this product.
Yeah.
Like, bang, there's the transaction right there.
Yeah.
The mind can't really understand that if someone's lost and I help them find out where they're going, that there is another transaction going on there that I maybe feel good about helping that person.
Yeah.
But normally the mind is not operating on that level because it's harder to quantify, right? Like what am I, if I help someone else and I don't get anything like material back from that, am I benefiting? I can't see it. So
Yeah, I think you're speaking to different parts of the mind. Yeah, the what we often call the ego part of the mind is thinking, I give this to the person, I'm going, what do I get back? But when you said if somebody's a bit lost and you assist them, to find their way, there's no we're not trying to get anything back there. That's a higher part of the mind, like a more, you could say, a selfless part of the mind, where the ego tends to be, more self-centered in, looking at what's in it for me, and I've got to protect my stuff, and so it's more thinking about what's about ourself,
right.
Whereas the second is thinking about the other person's needs, and that's what we're taught in as part of the yoga teachings. Is that the more we can just stop we do need to think about our needs and take care of the basic needs, but mostly we want to think about the other person and what their needs are, and be serviceful and helpful. And then, as you say, we're just naturally going to feel good, because what actually happens is when we're serviceful and giving, the mind gets really quiet, and that is the reason that we start to feel really good. It's because our mind is, it's like the mind just relaxes. Like there's no conflict or
or second guessing, like, was that a good bargain? Did I bargain too hard with that person?
Talking about needs, that serves a deeper need that we have. Like from my experience, we have this need to quiet the mind, right? Like that is definitely a need that I have once I experience it. Like I need to stop thinking, like, right? Like that's very good for myself to do that. Therefore, helping other people and serving is a great way to meet that need.
It is, yeah. I'm not sure if everybody has that need or focus for quietening their mind. I think it depends on where the person's at. Because often a lot of human beings are looking outside for their happiness. So their minds are very active. And it's at a certain point, though, we realize because the happiness outside is so transitory, and sometimes, we get disappointed or upset because we didn't get what we wanted, or many times that happens. Then we start to, what's going on here? Sometimes I get what I want, sometimes I don't. So I'm on this roller coaster ride. I've got to get off this. How can I get off it? And so how we get off it is through the yoga teachings, which is what we've been talking about as being, instead of just looking out for ourselves, we start to look out for others, so that things start to smooth out. And we do our meditation, all those practices. But there is, human beings have a natural, maturing process. It's an organic process, and we all go through that process of really trying to get happy in the world, and it's a mixed bag. And then when we start to find our happiness within, it does feel so good, and then we can still enjoy the world as long as we just got to be careful not to get caught into it. It's okay to enjoy the happiness of, driving down the road with the windows open, a nice warm day in the car. You just enjoy it, and the breeze is coming in, and you're seeing the nature, enjoy it. There's nothing, but, if we're in the office the next day and we can't do that because we're in the office, we don't want to get upset. Oh, yesterday it was so much fun, because we're living in the past.
Holding on to peak
we're holding on to
experiences,
I wish I was back there. That was, instead of, we could be in our peace and enjoying, that inner peace, or just, really enjoying what we're doing in the moment. So, it's not the world's bad. It's just, if we're connected to our peace, we can keep everything in perspective. And then if we don't get what we really wanted, okay, well, maybe something better is coming, but it doesn't really matter because I feel content. Like I didn't get what I want, but I still feel content.
Yeah.
So I'm okay still, right? I mean, in that situation.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is maturity. I think that's mature to have that perspective, that I can't live in peak experiences all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mitra, thanks so much. Really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Any information that you'd like to share, or any way that someone might be able to get in touch with you if they would like to?
Well, as it happens, I do have a workshop coming up. It's called Letting Go. I think we mentioned it earlier. Letting Go is easier when we know how. And that workshop it's a weekend workshop coming up on February 27th and 28th. And so we're going to, it's very experiential, very practical. Of course, there's some theory just to lay the foundation. But I'm looking forward to sharing that with our group. So you're welcome to come to that. You can check out the Yogava website. Just encourage you to explore what teachings and practices resonate with you. We all find our own path. We all have a different path. Even if we say we're all integral yogis, we still have an individual path. So and that can all be guided from within too. So don't sweat it.
I love it. I hope the program is great for you, and thanks again for this time.
Thank you, Avi.
Shanti.
Appreciate it. Shanti.
All right.
Good.
That's it.
That was fun.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.